You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk.
Number 338.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the first in the 2012 series of podcasts here from the Outdoor Station. I know it's a bit of a while since we did the last one, but there are reasons for that which I'll come on to. And of course the last couple of releases we did was just at the Christmas period, where Andy and I went to, for another one of our big days out, to the Crickhowell Horseshoe, which is obviously at Crickhowell, just outside of Brecon, in the heart of the Brecon Beacons, right in the centre of mid-Wales there. Very beautiful part of the world, and on that particular day, sadly, the worst day before Christmas, where the storms kicked in, and we were cooking, or I was cooking, a 3-course meal, and both of us were holding the tents down at the same time, which was a bit of a juggle. However, it's entertaining and informative, and certainly, I think, well, let's look at the figures. Over 25,000 people have listened to those, so thank you very much for downloading them, and I hope you enjoyed that. We'd like to have a big day out where we do something slightly different, or record a general day out for people's entertainment, and they're a very popular range of podcasts. The other thing about the actual content of those two programs, which people have emailed me about and have flagged up, is actually how useful pot cozy material is. And so if you're still not convinced that that's something to definitely consider in your cooking style, whether you cook on wood burners, meths or gas of course, then do have a listen to that, because I managed to cook a 3-course Christmas meal with all fresh ingredients using one gas burner and various pots and pans and some pot cozy, which did make a massive difference and made for a very, very warm, enjoyable meal in pretty atrocious conditions. So definitely worth considering if you need convincing as to the effectiveness of that material. Now we'll be hearing from Andy a bit later on. He's finally, you think I'm late, he's finally delivered the interview that he did with Colin Brown, the warden of Glenafric Youth Hostel, which he did last May, I have to say. But that'll be of interest to people perhaps thinking of heading out to Glenafric this year at all for to see and call into the hostel, use the facilities there or whatever, but also people doing the TGO Challenge this year, of course, which is in May, and I'm sure they'll get a fair number of people visiting the hostel as they walk across Scotland. So the content of the interview will be of interest to them, I'm sure. Now, coming on to my excuses or my reasons for the delay in releasing this latest one. Well, it's been fairly quiet, like most of the people in the commercial world. I'm sure we're all saying this sort of thing. It's fairly quiet at the moment, and it's no different in the outdoors industry. However, we have been developing and bringing some new stoves to market. I started on these towards the end of last year, summer of last year, and I've just taken delivery of the first one, which is called the Pocket Stove. What I've tried to do, we've got the Pocket Stove, we've redesigned certain elements of the Honey Stove and the Hive, and I've got a new stove which is a wood gasifier coming out, hopefully sometime in springtime, called the Wilderness Stove. Part of my feeling at the moment is that we get far too much made abroad, so my ambition was to have these stoves made and have every component part of it made in the UK where at all possible, and I've achieved it so far. So the Pocket Stove is now on the Backpacking Light website. It's a great little starter one-person solo cook set for people interested in using either wood or meths as a cooking sauce, or Esbit tablets, of course. And that is also, and this is probably the most exciting thing, I am literally expecting now, as I'm recording this, my first delivery of titanium products. That is, again, all British made, British cut, British designed, for the Pocket Stove and for the Honey Stove. And I saw the first samples last week, and I'm very excited about the final items. Now, the only thing I would say, as people are probably aware, titanium ain't cheap. And I've managed to purloin a few sheets of titanium for the first batch from the motor racing industry. God bless them. and it is incredible. What a price for a sheet of metal. So we've got some grade 2 0.5mm titanium, and that should be arriving, as I say, literally as I record this. So I'm very excited about this. In fact, if it does arrive, I'm going to stop recording and go and get it. Now, coming on to the wood gasifier, the Wilderness Stove. Oh, my word. I've been working on this now for, almost 6 years, trying to find a way to get this manufactured in the UK. People that know have heard of the Bush Buddy, which, of course, is made by Fritz over in Canada, and the Bush Cooker, which is made, it's distributed by a company in Holland, but it's made in Poland. So I really, really wanted to produce something that used the same sort of wood gasification technique, but have it entirely made in the UK, and also sex up the design a bit, to be honest. I've most of the way there, but every time I turn a corner and think I've just got it right, it throws up another problem. And we're also one of the key things I'd like to get it produced in a range of colours, because it just looks gorgeous. However, there are technical issues regarding anodizing material. You can't mix materials when you anodize them because it perishes one material, not the other, and all this sort of stuff. So bear with me on that score. I think I've got a result. I think I know how I'm going to do this, but I'm really, really looking forward to it. It's going to be a British-made wood gasifier stove, trademarked already as the Wilderness Stove, and it'll only have one join in it, which is the most exciting part. It'll be lightweight. It'll be the same sort of size as the other products, in the sense that it'll fit inside the sort of standard 1 litre or 900ml pot. And I'm desperate to get it done. So we're working hard on that one. And the only reason I announce it now is that we had hoped that it would be launched at the beginning of April, but it might be a little bit of a delay, and we're already publicising it in the magazines. So if you see it, that's the story behind it. It's coming soon. We're almost there. And we're flying the flag for British manufacture in the outdoors industry. Hurrah! Yeah!
You're listening to theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
Another reason for the tardiness in bringing the new podcast out was the launch of the new Outdoor Station website. If you'd like to have a look at that, I'd be very, very glad for you to pop along. I'm just going to load it up now. theoutdoorstation.co.uk. The website's been completely redesigned, made much more functional, and hopefully more of a sort of a multimedia entertainment area for people interested in our lifestyle of lightweight travel, independent travel, self-powered travel. And once again, we're concentrating, as always, on podcasts to inform, inspire and entertain. If you go along to the homepage, you'll see there straight away features and reviews and sort of headlines to click on of recent films, recent videos rather, recent audio podcasts or recent written articles, book reviews, etc., which you can click on. There's also, if you just scroll down the screen slightly, there is a search engine, and that allows you to obviously search by topic or search by content. Beforehand, with something like iTunes or some of the other podcast readers, aggregate readers, that's the technical term, is you have a description that comes with the podcast, and that allows, I can put so many characters in, but unfortunately you can't search the content. So what we've done is made that happen. And now, so should you write in there, for example, TGO Challenge, or I don't know, product brand Innovate or MSR or whatever it might be, what will come up will be the appropriate videos, written word or audio, where I've actually detailed some of the items we've spoken about. Now, with over 350 odd podcasts in the library, it's taking a while for all that data to be entered, and that's what's taken a while over the Christmas period, is to try and get it up to date, or as up to date as I can do. Obviously, everything we're doing from now moving forward will have a lot more detail in, and when I get time, I'll slowly drop in more detail on past programs to help that search engine. Beneath that, if you're interested in subscribing to the website or subscribing to the audio podcast, you've picked this up somewhere along the line, There is a subscribe button for iTunes. There is another one for the RSS feed, and there is another one to get any new posts via email. So wherever you are, if we post or add something onto the website, you will get an email that lets you know there's something new, which you can then choose to listen to or watch or download or whatever the case may be. So we're very, very pleased with the new website. It also allows everybody to have comments. We've got the comments feature working. So should you have comments on the Christmas podcast that Andy and I did, there's pictures there to go along with the podcast. And any of the other content there, the videos that I've done from last year's TGO Challenge to give you a flavour of what that entails. You're more than welcome to do so, and I'll see those podcasts as you provide them. And obviously, providing they're suitable, we will let them go live. So, very, very pleased with the new website. Again, it's taken the time, a few adverts on there as well, but hopefully people will enjoy that and find that a good resource for these cold nights during the winter period, or any time you just want some inspiration. So do a bookmark, theoutdoorstation.co.uk, and we'd love to see you there at some stage.
You're listening to theoutdoorstation.co.uk. Award-winning producers of podcasts to inform, inspire and entertain lovers of the great outdoors everywhere.
Another thing that's mentioned on the website is, of course, my involvement as a judge with this year's Podcast Awards, European Podcast Awards. And as part and parcel of that, I've actually gone into some of the people that have been nominated and had a good listen to a whole range of things. Not necessarily things I've been working on, but certainly a range of material supplied by a whole variety of different producers, and I'm really reassured that people are still producing good quality material. So I thought what I'd do is I'd run through 3 or 4 of my favourites at the moment, which I've, if you like, recently discovered, although they've probably been going for a while now. I thought I'd mention them to you, and I'll also put links to them in the website as well. So if you miss the name, you can pop along to the website and see a direct link to them there. But I've tried to. What I tend to find I enjoy most of all listening to is subjects similar to what we're talking about. It's outdoor lifestyle, outdoor living, people perhaps living in different cultures, a place around the world, and what they have to face. It just makes you appreciate more what you've got and how lucky we are and that sort of thing. And that's the general range of programs I'd like to listen to. So in alphabetical order, because that's how it is in my iTunes, obviously, there's the Faroe Islands podcast, which is quite interesting. Really, it's very can be a bit local, a bit parochial in its content, but all the same, it's still quite an interesting record of people's lifestyle and what they have to live through in the Faroe Islands. The Global Voices podcast. This is done by Jamila Knowles, who does some freelance work, I think, for 5 Live, for Radio 5 in their late night programs. She basically interviews people that have different blogs from around the world, different cultures, different lifestyle, and an update of news from a blogger's point of view as opposed to the mainstream news. And again, gives you a little bit of background sometimes about things which are in the mainstream news, and you'll get more of a thought about looking at it from a different angle, which is quite interesting. This one is the next one I found much more enjoyable than I expected. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's called Maximise Your Potential. Naturally, I was expecting it to be more business orientated about achieving great financial goals and so on. And there is a certain amount of that in there. But the producer interviews quite a few outdoors people that do or have done a number of things. There's Richard Hume, for example, who rode the Atlantic. He also did a triple Ironman. He also interviews a few triathletes, various walkers, various Olympic champions, and most interestingly of all, Benita Norris, who is the good-looking young lady that's sponsored by Carrymore. That's obviously the youngest lady, I think, to climb Everest. It gives some background as to how she achieved a goal and what she had to go through to get there. And to be honest, it's changed my view of her from the little information that I had so far. So, a bit of background. It's quite entertaining. Again, something to load your iPod up when you're sitting in your tent one night during these dark winter nights, wanting something a bit different. And finally, another one, which is I find quite creative and enjoyable, and again easy listening, is one called Voices from Ireland, podcasts.ie. And it is a collective, basically, of creative people, writers, poets, musicians, people with stories, people with history stories, and it's put together sort of Radio 4 style, and it's really easy listening, really gentle, and extremely entertaining. And I found that very pleasurable to listen to. So, well worth having a listen. And as I say, I'll put links to these on the website, and you can get a direct link straight to those. And I'm sure you'll get as much pleasure from them as I have. Okay, so now let's get into the long-awaited interview from Mr. Howell, who spoke to Colin Brown, the warden at Altbeath Youth Hostel in Glen Affric in the Scottish Youth Hostel Association last May when he was doing the TGO Challenge. And people who listen to this might be interested to find out what they're going to have as a reception when they're doing this year's.
Of all the wild and rugged glens of the Scottish Highlands, Glen Affric is generally considered to be one of the most beautiful. The glen is accessible to all through the car park at the base of its loch, and it's become a popular place for lochside rambles and excursions into the lush woodland. But to experience the real magic of Affric, you have to be prepared to hike for 3 hours up into the high reaches of the glen. And here you'll find the highest, most lonely and most isolated hostel in the UK, the Altbeath Hostel, run by the Scottish Youth Hostel Association. I spent 2 nights at Altbeath last summer, where I met Colin Brown, who was in his first year as warden of this unique and special place. I thought it would be a nice idea to talk to Colin not only about his life here in the hostel, but also about his plans for the future. Colin is determined to ensure that Altbeath doesn't suffer the same fate as some other small hostels over recent years, which has sadly been closure. Colin hails from North Warwickshire, my part of the world in the West Midlands, and I started by asking how a lad from the Birmingham conurbation came to be running a hostel high in the Scottish Highlands.
It all kind of come out of chance, really. The opportunity was on the website for the SYHA, and I had numerous things going on personally within my life, and I just thought, just do it, apply for it. So I did, and well, here I am.
You're obviously a keen hill walker, and I think your family have got connections with the area.
Yeah, very much so. I've walked quite a few of the hills up here. So yeah, I've got a firm knowledge of where we are, let's put it that way. So
this is your first year, and you start in April and finish in September, I guess in a few weeks' time from now. So, I mean, what was it like being pitched into it? Because have you done this kind of work before?
No, never. I'd never stayed in a youth hostel before. I'd never worked for the SYHA before. This was all completely new to me. Everybody that obviously come into the hostel, they're like, "Oh, have you done this before?" I'm like, no. And they think I'm absolutely crazy, and they think I've been hard done by being stuck all the way out here on my own. But it was actually my choice. It was specifically me that asked for this hostel.
I think there'll be a lot of people listening to this who kind of secretly fancy being the warden of a hostel as isolated as this one in Glen Affric. But, obviously it clearly is a big life-changing move. But it looks, just looking at you and chatting last night, it's obviously been a good one for you.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it was a big gamble for myself personally, but I just reached a point with my previous job and so on where I just, I needed to go in a totally new direction. And yeah, like I say, I just went for this, got the job, I got put out here, it's entertaining. it's different. It's fast paced. It can be slow paced as well. It can be very quiet sometimes. It can be very busy, also. So there's never a dull moment.
So take us through the average day of a hostel warden, because I noticed you were up at 5 this morning, lighting the fire that meant that the rest of us could have a hot shower and hot water.
Yeah, I mean, I can only really base it on my experience in this hostel, really, but my typical day is up at 5 o'clock in the morning, light the fire, obviously like you've just said, that's for the hot water, because we don't have any mains electricity up here. We don't have no telephone lines, we don't have no mobile phone signals, nothing. So yeah, that's the first start of the day. Get the kettles on for people who are waking up, ready to go up the hills later on in the morning. And basically just plod around till 10 o'clock, and then it's full steam ahead with the cleaning. That usually takes me about 2.5 hours. I like to think I keep a high standard here, even though it's just a shack out in the middle of nowhere or something.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, then it's a few hours respite for myself, unless I've got other maintenance duties to do, and then just wait for new people to arrive, because I don't have a kicking out time here. I should do, but I don't, and I don't even have a sort of arrival time. I just let people in as soon as they turn up on the doorstep, really, because obviously they spent 3 hours walking in here, so the least I can do is let them in and sit down for a bit. So.
I mean, you've obviously got connections with the area, because we met your dad before we met you. We met him at the car park at the other end of Glen Affric, and he said, "Oh, my son's the warden there," and then we met you walking back up. So the walk to Cannock is obviously a regular occurrence to you, but it's an area you obviously know very well.
Yeah, know it very well. I mean, it's through my parents many, many years ago. We've been coming to the Cannock area for 25 years now, and they bought their retirement nest egg up here, and they come backwards and forwards every 6 weeks up here, but they're yet to actually retire, and so I'm currently living in their house at the moment. So they introduced me to the whole hill walking thing when I was very, very young, and I've just took it on ever since.
So I mean, while you're here day to day, do you get a chance to get into the hills, or is it all work?
No, I mean, I'll give time to myself, but I don't feel that there's enough time available for me to start disappearing off up the hills. So, with me cleaning up till sort of, 12, 1 o'clock, it only leaves me with sort of 4 or 5 hours left to, sort of do what I want to do. And I don't like putting myself under that sort of pressure, because once I go up one, I have a tendency to just think, I'll just go and nip that one in quickly as well, and 1 becomes 2 and 2 becomes 4 and so on. So, yeah.
Safety is a bit of an issue, isn't it? We were talking last night about some of the people that you see walking up here, which is a pretty exposed area. I mean, although I guess Glen Affric is nice, but it's you're still getting a lot of people coming into the hills who are not prepared, and the safety theme or the responsibility of looking after theme is a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for everybody coming out into the outdoors, and that, it's a fantastic experience all round, but at the same time I see an awful lot of people travelling through, from the Glen Affric car park, coming through from Cluny, and then obviously going through to Morvick. And granted, it's only my opinion, but they're just not prepared at all. You see that they've got inadequate footwear on. They're not even carrying wet weather gear with them at all. Some of them aren't even carrying maps and compasses, and they don't realise how quickly it can change and how much sort of danger they can put themselves into. They seem to think that because it's not the Alps, it's not a problem, but they do really underestimate it. So.
And you, in a sense, have to be looking out for people, don't you? You have to be on the lookout for them.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I always give them a bit of advice. I'm not saying I know everything. I just know my little bit of Scotland. I know this area very well, and if I can help people or give them advice or alternative routes that maybe would be a lot more straightforward for them, if they take that advice, then great. If not, obviously I've done as much as I can possibly do, and we've already had an incident where one guy, he was on the brink of hypothermia. Again, no wet weather gear, In the end, I says, you're not prepared for this. I ended up driving them all back, all three of them, back to Bewley the following day, and told them to get a connection round to sort of Kyler like Ulster and all that, because there's just no way they were prepared to carry on through to Morvick. I mean, he was in a bad way, a real bad way. So, but luckily, everything turned out well.
Well, we're lucky we've got people like you, I think, looking out for us when we're walking on the hills. Now, this hostel is designated an eco-hostel. I mean, the most obvious thing you see is the big windmill outside, but how does it get its power?
Well, we've got solar-powered panels on the roof. That's connected to the immersion heater for the hot water tank. Not that we really see much sun out this way. It does have its moments.
As you just said that, the sun started shining through the window.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, the weather-wise, I mean, you just got to take the rough with the smooth. But I mean, yeah, we've got the solar power panels on the roof. We've got the wind turbine at the back. All the hot water's done by the stove inside the building. And, you know, we try and do our little bit for the environment with recycling and stuff. Obviously, you know, toilet-wise, we've got cesspit and natural reed bed. We use completely eco-friendly products like washing up liquid and, you know, sort of toilet cleaners and things like that. So, you know, we're very green out here, to tell the truth. Very green indeed.
And is this technology that's been piloted for use in other areas of the country?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think the wind farm technology is taken off quite a bit, especially for people with their homes. It's become quite a popular thing, as long as I think people can get the sort of planning permission to erect these wind turbines. It proves that you can be self-sufficient on your own by using, you know, wind power.
Okay, well, I know wind turbines are quite a controversial figure for many hill walkers, but I think on this scale we're doing okay. Now, I mean, you said earlier you like to try and keep it in good condition, and it is. You know, it's a wonderfully hospitable and decent place for a wood shack in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. But you were telling us last night you got plans for next year, which I think are going to be of interest to quite a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, ideas, I've got to run them past the powers that be. I already have run a few of them past them already. They seem quite keen on it, but they're yet to be finalised. But I think they will be. We're hopefully, fingers crossed, going to convert the rear dormitory from 2 10 dormitories to 8 twin rooms throughout. So that'll sort of give people a bit more of personal space rather than having to sleep with the odd snorer and things like that.
Yeah, we were very lucky last night.
Yeah. Also, planning on maybe having things like milk, pasta, rice, eggs, you know, long life sort of stuff up here, so that obviously people haven't got to carry it all in. And the big one, which again, fingers crossed, you know, depending on where we stand legally with it, potentially I'm thinking of like selling tins of lager up here, and, you know, sort of maybe the odd nip of whiskey, you know, and maybe glasses and bottles of wine. Again, it saves on weight for people carrying it in, so, you know, as long as everybody behaves themselves.
Now, we have a lot of Munro baggers and a lot of TGO challengers listening to this. The notion that they might be able to get some alcohol here, I have a feeling you're going to be even busier next year.
Well, I hope so. I mean, hopefully people aren't just coming out here to get on the session, shall we put it, but I mean, at the same time, it's always good when you come off a hill to wind down after having a shower and having something to eat, and just have a nice sociable beverage or two. It's a good thing, you know. It gets everybody interacting, and yeah, you know, all the stories start being told, and it makes up for a good night.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if you were in the French or the Spanish refugees high in the mountains, you'd kind of expect to get a beer at the end of the day and something like that. So it's probably a good move. But that notion about the kind of communal... We had a lovely night last night with those 2 young kids, both primary school. Lovely children, weren't they? Yep. Dad getting them just used to the hills by walking in from Cannock. But, you know, I guess the kind of communal element of something is quite special, really. It
is. I mean, I think the communal atmosphere in this hostel in particular, I think it's very important, and I think it plays a major part in what the hostel actually is, because, you know, facilities-wise, we hold our own out here, but at the same time, a lot of it comes down to the individuals that are turning up here, and I haven't had really anybody so far that hasn't really integrated with others. We've always had a good laugh around the table. It's every night's just hilarious, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. Do you think that we were talking last night about the difficulty youth hostels are having in competition from the hotels? I think Inverness, we were saying we stayed in a travel lodge the other night, 19 quid for a room for two of us. And you were saying the Inverness youth hostel is struggling in relation to competition to the hotel chains. But do you think the kind of atmosphere that you've got here and the way this place is run maybe has to be something that's built into more of the youth hostel movement in terms of differentiating it, I guess, from the cheap hotel chains?
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, you know, obviously you look at the likes of Travelodge and Premier Inn and all the big players. People have to accept that they are hotel chains, and the YHA are, you know, what they are. You know, they take their fair share of the pie, should we say, because Travelodge and Premier Inn only have their cheap prices at the weekend. During the week, obviously, they're back to full price, whereas obviously the YHA, their accommodation's cheaper throughout the week. So obviously, you know, it swings and roundabouts for both. But I mean, at the same time, it's I think what we have here, I think it's actually quite unique, really. I don't see being able to take anything from this hostel and inputting it elsewhere. This hostel is just completely out on its own. It's got its own little bit of character. It's got its own sort of place in everybody's hearts that come and stay here, and everybody just seems to love it. And you know, everybody keeps commenting about, oh, you know, you're a really good warden and this and that, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever sort of thing. I just brush it off. But no, I think you just got to. Everybody's just got to integrate with each other and just have a good crack, really, at the end of the day. And that's what this hostel is all about.
Good. Well, you must have had some special moments or some really brilliant moments during the year. I mean, have you got some highlights you can share with us?
I think the highlights had to be in May when we had atrocious weather.
Yes, I was here in May.
Yeah, really atrocious weather. I think our strongest wind up here was 130 mile an hour. All the burns were, 3-4 foot higher than what they are now. The bridge out the front of the hostel, the metal suspension bridge, the river was just licking both sides of that, and I had 3 guests in from the previous night, and they decided to go up Ben Attu in the afternoon at about midday. I said to them, I don't think you're actually going to get to the top, boys. I says, you're not even going to get halfway before you can't stand up. And they went out and done it anyway. I says, you'll be back by 3 o'clock. And sure enough, 3 o'clock they were banging on the door. And I says, did you get up the top of Ben Attu? He was like, no. I was like, told you. But in they came. And we were sat around the table having a cup of tea. And they says, have you got any arrivals due for tonight? And they were like, no. And says, I meant to have 2, but there's no way they're going to turn up in this. And at 8 o'clock, one of the guys was taking pictures and video of the weather outside the porch of the hostel. And he gave us a call and he's like, you're not going to believe this. He says, come and look at this. So we all ran to the front of the hostel. And basically these 2 guys came in from the Clooney path, literally leaning 45 degrees into the wind. And they got to the suspension bridge and literally paused for a moment, and you could just see the look of terror on their faces as they're thinking, is this bridge safe? And came to the hostel. So obviously, as we were approaching, we thought we'd have a laugh, so we turned the availability sign round to sorry, hostel full, and locked the door. And as they came up the path, their faces just hit the floor. So we all appeared from behind the window, obviously laughing and joking. And we opened the door, let them in. We all sat down and had a cup of tea and coffee. And it then became apparent that the 2 of these guys had been sat in the Clooney Inn since midday and decided that it was a good idea to set off at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Bearing in mind the weather had just constantly got worse throughout the day. But I suppose a few of the specials, brewers, ales maybe gave them a bit of Dutch courage. So they left at 5 o'clock, got here for 8, absolutely soaked to the skin. But they'd also carried in a 3-litre case of wine with them, which was pretty impressive. But I did say to the guy, no wonder you wasn't being blown off your feet, because you were being anchored to the floor by that case of wine. Obviously, as the night went on, we finished the case of wine between us all around the table. And so I thought, well, we might as well be sociable. So I got 3 bottles of wine out of my own quarters. Obviously, the night went on and we drank them. And then we got 2 bottles of scotch out of my quarters because we virtually drunk the place dry again. And we finished the 2 bottles of scotch. And then the other 2 guests brought out a bottle of homemade slow vodka. We eventually threw in the towel. I think it was about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. It was a special night again because there was such a small group of people, but it was just such a brilliant night. It really was funny, very funny.
Well, it does have that kind of feel to it, doesn't it? It does have that kind of atmosphere. And I know a lot of people always say to me, well, we'd love to stay there. And they really should make the effort, I think. If somebody was planning to come up and base themselves here for at least part of a holiday, what would be the best time of the year to come, Colin?
I'd say the beginning of the season, April, May. Obviously, May was a bit of a washout this year. April was very good. Just glorious sunshine for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. June is a bit hit and miss. It all depends on the midges. If you can tolerate the midges, I'd say come whenever. But if you're not a fan of the midges, you've either got to come at the beginning of the season or towards the end of the season, because the midges can be pretty bad. But if people do come in, they need to sort of really plan on how they're going to get to the hostel, and not just pick the shortest route, because sometimes the shortest route isn't necessarily the easiest route. So, there's plenty of ways to get to the hostel. And, if people want any advice with regards to the best direction to come from, and depending on their mode of transport that they're coming in on, whether it be on foot or on a bike, whether they're taking a low route or a high route, if they just send an email to the SYHA, either at the Inverness office or the Glen Affric email address, obviously I'll pick them up, and if I can respond to them, then obviously I will, and I'll give whatever advice possible.
Okay, well, lovely. It's not obligatory to bring a 3-litre case of wine into the youth hostel. I guess it helps, but we can testify, Carl and I, that the hospitality here, certainly at the moment, is very special. And you'll be here next season.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if it might sound a bit selfish or a bit big-headed, but if I get my own way and the plans that and ideas that I want to put in place get agreed, I think it will only improve. And you saying with regards to hospitality side of it, you ain't seen nothing yet because it's your last night tonight. So,
well, look, we had a great time last night, and a lot of that was down to you. So thanks very much, Colin.
Not a problem.
Well, we did indeed have a wonderful evening shared with a hostel full of hill walkers, all of whom were taking refuge from some pretty dreadful weather conditions that raged outside. There is a magical atmosphere about this place, a wonderful camaraderie as walkers gather together in the evening around the wood-burning stove, share their stories, swap experiences, and most importantly pass on their knowledge of the hills to that next generation of thru-hiker and Munro bagger. And even if wild camping and a search for lonely isolation is more your thing, I think any hill walker in the Highlands ought to experience the magic of Ulbeath at least once in their walking career. As you heard, Ulbeath is a very isolated and a small youth hostel, and it has no direct phone access. So if you're thinking of spending an evening here this summer, it's best to book ahead. You can do that using the booking form on the Scottish Youth Hostel Association website, and you'll find that at www.syha.org.uk, or there is a centralised telephone booking system, and that number is 0845 293 7373. 0845 293 7373. If you find yourself in Glen Affric this summer and you're strolling past the hostel, then why not knock on the door and say hello to Colin? There'll be a warm welcome, and more than likely he'll put the kettle on.
Well, that pretty well brings this one to a close, and my thanks to Andy and Colin for the interview. The next few interviews have already been recorded and are being prepared. The first one I think you'll find quite interesting is with a couple, Esther and Warren Sanders, who are cycling around the world and taking several years to do that, and they're doing it on a very simple, humble, lightweight approach. Again, interesting. And the other one is with another two-parter with Jasper Wynne, who has just released a book called Paddling Around Ireland. And strangely enough, the content of the interview is all about that as well. And he makes for some very entertaining content and conversation. So I shall look forward to releasing those over the next few weeks. I'm sure you will enjoy those enormously. And in the meantime, folks, enjoy this cold snap, get out and have some fresh air, and catch you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear more from our extensive free library, please visit the website at theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
You can now follow The Outdoor Station on Facebook, where we chat about each programme we produce, answer questions and discuss future productions. Why not join us there?
This podcast is produced and hosted by theoutdoorstation.co.uk.